What do you actually need watsonx code assistant for when you can just use ChatGPT? That is a very legit question. And the answer is, if you're just automating your home server, you don't need it. You can just use ChatGPT or something like that and it's going to be fine. But when you're working in a large company and you're operating large parts of your critical infrastructure with Ansible, which is what it's really good for, then it's a different story. For me, it comes down to 3 main points that make the difference. The first reason is privacy. Your Ansible scripts are probably the most critical artifact that you have in your company from a cybersecurity perspective. So you want to make sure that your developers are not tempted to just simply copy paste your super critical Ansible scripts into their browser to get the help that they need. With Code Assistant, you can go as far as actually running it in your own data center, so you can make sure that your Ansible scripts never leave your premise. The second point is transparency. Whenever you get something out of ChatGPT or Gemini or any other commercial large language model application, it's usually pretty good quality, but you never know what kind of data was used in there and what kind of data the suggestion you get is based on. This can be a problem from a copyright perspective. If you're using a model that is trained on code that you're not allowed to use, you could end up with that problem. Additionally, this could even be an attack vector for bad actors. It's absolutely possible to ingest vulnerable code into the training data of a large language model and therefore have it also generate vulnerable code. So whenever you're using a model where you don't know what data was used to train it, you're putting your trust on the organization that trained that model. And you have to ask yourself, do you want to do that for your most critical infrastructure? The models used in watsonx Code Assistant have been trained on a highly curated data set from the whole Ansible ecosystem, and therefore they use, well, the most high quality data you can find for this specific task. And that leads me to the third point. For critical applications like this, you do not necessarily just want to do what most other people have done. I mean, that's what a large language model has been trained on. You might want to be sure to actually use the best practices and use the tool the way it was intended to be used. And for that, watsonx Code Assistant, I mean, on the one side, it's been trained on the most high quality data for Ansible tasks. And on the other side, it offers a content matching where you actually have your suggestion matched to the documentation or other best practices or approved scenarios from the community. If you've made it this far in the video, it's quite likely that you know what Ansible is. Just in case you don't, here's a quick definition that is totally not written by ChatGPT. Ansible is a cutting-edge automation tool that simplifies complex IT tasks. Using YAML, a human-readable language, it lets you manage servers, deploy software, and automate tasks with ease. It's agentless, relying on SSH, meaning setup is quick and maintenance is low. Ansible is all about making IT automation accessible, efficient, and scalable for everyone, from developers to sysadmins. Now that we all know what Ansible is, I'm going to show you a demo where we're going to use, well, Ansible to deploy a virtual machine on AWS and deploy a small WordPress instance on it. Well, and obviously we're going to use watsonx Code Assistant for that. To show you now how this works in practice, I'm going to use a sample that you can find on GitHub. It's been published by Christopher Bianco, so shout out to you, Chris. It simply goes through all the steps that are necessary to set up an EC2 instance on AWS, install everything you need for WordPress on it, and assign a public IP address to it. So you might say that this is like a sophisticated hello world example for Ansible. First thing you need to do is create your AWS credentials that your Ansible script is supposed to use. And this is pretty simple. You go onto the AWS console, go to Identity and Access Management, and you create a new user. I have already done this. And in this case, we simply have the credentials here in the code. Obviously, this is only for demo purposes. In a real world scenario, you should put them somewhere safe. Now we still need the star of the show, Code Assistant. It's pretty simple because it is integrated into the Ansible package. And so the only thing we need to do is go to Extensions, Ansible, and install Ansible. Once we've done this, this little A here appears. And when you're not logged in yet, there is going to be a login button here. And you will have to provide your credentials and then you're ready to go. But where do you get those credentials from? Well, it's pretty simple. There's a great post by Grace Williamson. Shout out to you, Grace. But the main thing is there is a trial version and you can just sign up for IBM Cloud and provision the service and it's going to be free and you're going to get your access to watsonx Code Assistant. Now we're all set and ready to go with our first Ansible task. And if you ever used GitHub Copilot, the usability is pretty much exactly the same. So in this case, we have the description of what this task is supposed to do, and we just press enter. And you see there's this little circle here doing its thing, and we wait a moment, and there's our suggestion, and you just press tab to accept. And that's how easy it is. So we can go straight to task number 2. So what we need to do here is create a security group that is open on some specific ports. And that's definitely going to be quite a lot more code that we will need for that. So let's press enter, wait a moment. Oh, and here's our suggestion. Let's accept it for now. Well, this looks pretty good so far. But the great thing about Code Assistant is we don't have to blindly trust what was suggested to us. So if we pull up this, we can see which examples from the Ansible galaxy this code snippet relates to. So if we check this, for example, by Mihonoshin, can check the documentation, and we might even contact him if we want to. This is also a really good example to show how context-aware Code Assistant is. So, for example, here, I don't like the naming that we've chosen. I mean, it's like vpc.vpc.id, that just does not look good. So I want to call this something more useful, like WordPress VPC. That's nice. But now this is already called WordPress VPC, but it's a security group, so we're going to add _sg to it. And now we just have to regenerate this part. So let's just throw all of this away. And there we go. Now we have WordPress _vpc.vpc.id. And this thing is called WordPress _vpc_sg. Great. Now, following this methodology, I simply go through the whole template. Do a lot of things here, and something very important, we do create the actual EC2 instance here. And there is a detail I skipped over so far. To connect to this instance, we do need a key pair. We need to do this manually. It's in that I will add a description down there where you can see all the details about that. And then we need to install and configure WordPress and do a lot of housekeeping kind of stuff. Need to change the owner. Well, there are the credentials again. In a production use case, this obviously should not be in there, but it's fine for now. This will output the URL at the end. And now our playbook is ready to be run. And that you do that simply via the command line, Ansible playbook, template YAML, and there we go. This will take a moment. Yay! It worked. Our playbook ran all the way through, and we have our WordPress server ready now. So if we take this URL down here, that is gonna lead us on the generic Linux test page. So our machine is live, and if we go to WordPress/readme.html, we see that we have a working WordPress instance. So we could now start to build our travel and food blog or whatever we want. But that's not the point here. We successfully deployed a virtual machine and installed WordPress on it with a Ansible notebook that we wrote with watsonx Code Assistant. So one more look behind the curtain. If we look into AWS and we look into the instances here, we see that we've got this WordPress T2 small instance running. So yeah, pretty awesome. So that's it. That's everything I wanted to show you. Thanks for watching. And if there's anything I can help you with, just reach out, LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever. Always happy to chat. Bye.